Hello. I thought I'd try making a little end of season video for FPL, just to kind of recap what happened over the season and recap all the lessons learned and some thoughts about things. This was my first season as a engaged manager. Been playing it for about 15 years, casually. First season engaged. I finished just inside the top 500k, which is fine, I guess. I mean, by a lot of people's standards, that's not good. By my standards, it's alright-ish. I'm kind of happy with it because if you look at this, you go to this premierfantasytools.com, they give you loads of data from your season. And I like this graph. It shows you the shape of your season. And I just dipped into the top 500k in the very last game week after being like outside the top million for most of it, most of the season. So in that sense, I actually feel quite chuffed to get in the top 500k. That's the top 5%. Top 570k is top 5%, something like that. But if I go back to the start of the season, I think realistically I was thinking a top 100k would be a better result because I went back through some past seasons. This is just, all of these are when I've been playing casually, and this is my rank as a percentage of all the total players, which is kind of, well, it's one way of looking at some people think that's a kind of better way of thinking of your rank. I'm not really sure, but you could look at that. So I've had a lot of like top 5% finishes. That's current season. And this is just me playing casually. So this is me playing really highly engaged, putting all my focus on it. So that's not the best result maybe in that regard. It could be that I'm actually just kind of crap at the game, or maybe I don't have the knack, but we'll see. Maybe next season we'll find out if I've learned anything this season. Could be some bad luck. I don't know, man. You go on FPL Twitter and it's amazing how so many people just get like top 10k, top 100k finishes every season. There must be a knack to it. I definitely think if I bodge it up next season, then I'll just accept that I don't have the knack for this game. But at the moment, we'll see. We'll see next season. But yeah. And rank is interesting because I don't know whether you should do it. Some people might think that you should just keep it as top 10k, top 100k. That's important because it's like the Premiership is like the top 20 teams. It doesn't matter how popular football becomes and how many clubs join. The top 20 is always the Premiership. You could look at it like that, but I don't know. I think I prefer the percentage of all players. But I also think your rank, you shouldn't take it to heart too much because I don't think rank is the be all and end all of everything. Like in life, I think competition is like a tool to get us to what actually is important in life, which is like your well-being, your peace, your happiness, learning, growing, community, things like this. The competition is just a tool that you can use to motivate yourself to get better and to kind of learn things. And because the truth is, the game is like, it's a bit. I mean, Magnus Carlsen he plays the game. He's like a chess grandmaster even. And I'm obviously not that intelligent. And so, you're playing against people like this. There's all sorts of people playing the game. A lot of people have, well, there's a lot of people who might have more advantages in many ways. And so you shouldn't really compare yourself too much. Play it your own way, play against your own standards. So for me, I'm quietly chuffed with that by my standards. It's alright-ish. And I learnt a lot this season and I had fun. One of the funnest things was making my spreadsheet, which confirms how much of a geek I actually am. But I really liked working on my Excel spreadsheet all season, and you can download it for free here. I'll leave the link below if anybody wants it. So yeah, I had fun, but rank isn't that too important, I don't think. But I would say that because I'm just inside the top 500k. Anyway, so I wanted to go through the season and just think of some lessons I learned and just remember what happened So game week 1. So at the start of the season, I think there was this lesson of, for me, striking while the iron's hot is a lesson I've learned, which is like, in life in general, you normally get rewarded for being patient. Delayed gratification normally gets rewarded. Good things come to those who wait. And I just don't think FPL is that type of game. I tend to think FPL rewards spontaneity, opportunism, striking while the iron's hot kind of mentality. So you got like, if you remember at the start of the season, because at the start of the season there was a lot of things like we had Big at the back, which turned out to be not a good idea. There was Haaland, and there was lots of other things like Almiron had a purple patch. Salah wasn't hitting it in as much as he used to. Foden had a really good run. And a lot of these things, there's this sense of like, how quickly can you adapt? Mitrovic did quite well. How quickly can you adapt to these things? How, like something that dictated a person's season is how quickly they jumped on Haaland at the start. I got him on a game week 3. Ended up doing a wildcard game week 3. And I think that sense of how quickly you can adapt to things is important in FPL. A lot of people stuck with Salah for a long time, didn't they? And this is something about my model as well. I think a lot of models I noticed rate past season data really highly, whereas I don't think that matters. And it didn't matter at the start of the season. Trent and Salah was still right. Salah still did fine, but he wasn't doing it quite as good, especially for his price. But certainly Trent and Robbo and that. A lot of models were still predicting their points really highly, whereas I think my model is very form heavy, and I think that's right. Again, don't look at my rank, but I think that's right. That you should look at the game as what's happening right now, and they didn't. They were playing quite crap for a while, and then they switched it around second half. So a lot of the first half of the season was about how quickly you adapt to things, I think. And so there's these lessons I've been learning of not focusing too far ahead. Don't just focus on this current game week. I think is really important. The next game week, focusing on that and making sure you maximize that, and then not focusing more than maybe 2 or 3 game weeks ahead. I did, when the wildcard came and the chip strategy came, I did start thinking ahead a lot more. Then sometimes that helps, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's I don't know. There's just this sense of focusing a bit more in the short term is pays off in FPL. And I'll come on to more of that in a minute. Price changes as well. Sometimes if you a little bit of opportunism and taking a risk and going with the price changes early, I think can help. I do think team value is important. Again, on this website, Premier Fantasy Tools, where's the team value? This is the squad value. There was one period, wildcard 26, where my this pink is the squad value, and then the black is my team value, how much money I have. So there was one period where I had a really cheap team, but actually most of the time I was over 1 million. Quite a lot I was over 102 million. And so that boost of team value at the first half of the season did actually help. And I remember in game week 17, the Unlimited, there were squads that I could get to that other people couldn't, because I had didn't have amazing team value, but it was higher than some people's. And I think that helped me to get to some other squads that other people couldn't. Obviously didn't really help in the long run anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter. But I think sometimes a bit of opportunism, chasing price changes can help. Same with the chip strategies as well. Saving your chips till the end isn't always necessarily the right tactic. The right time to use your chips is whenever the most efficient, the maximal time to use your chip is, and it's not necessarily at the end. It can be any time in the season. So that, and then also just players when they have hot streaks and stuff, jumping on a player, getting on them quite early. It's quite a fine art though, because I sometimes feel like there's a pattern in when it comes to hot streaks of like, if you go too early, or if you jump on a player, sometimes somebody will smash it in and then they'll just peter out and they'll do nothing, and you've just wasted a transfer. But if you wait too long, you can miss a hot streak sometimes, and I don't know. It's very hard timing that, trying to get it just right. I think that's a whole art form and intuition that I need to probably get better at. Anyway, yeah, but that's something I've been thinking throughout this season, though. Striking while the iron's hot, and yeah, jumping on players. Let's think. I mean, I never got an Almiron in the end. I had him in my game week 1 team. He was like my punt, because he had a really good pre-season. But then I ended up selling him, and then he went on his patch, and I couldn't get him back in. And I think maybe -4s as well. If you want to do this striking while the iron's hot way of playing, you probably need to be open to some -4s, which I am. If you do -4s with a long-term view, I think they can work out. But whenever you're doing -4s with a short-term view of just one game week, they didn't work out as much for me this season. Almost all of them didn't pay off. And I did like 10 hits throughout the season, 40 points, -40, and most of them didn't pay off, I don't think. There was only 1 or 2 that I did long-term, and even they didn't pay off. Martinelli to Odegaard I did, and that didn't pay off in the end. So, yeah, but in principle, I still think long-term 4-point hits can work, but I didn't have much luck this season. Yeah. Anyway, so that was all happening. I also had some dodgy captain choices. I had, like, in game week 2, went for Salah, and Jesus got a 19-pointer. He was my vice. Just missed that fractionally. I'll come on to trolls in a minute. Mitrovic was a bit of a troll. Game week 4, I think, was another one. I decided to go for Jesus instead of Haaland. Actually, I had my vice on De Bruyne, but Haaland got a 17-pointer, so I missed that. I kept having these misses while I kept kind of going against Haaland, and he got a 9-pointer. He would have been better, that one. So, yeah, Mitrovic didn't really come through on that one. So I had some dodgy captain choices, so that didn't help. And I'm not really sure what I could learn from that. Like, do you just perma-captain Haaland every time now? Maybe. I don't think so. There's going to be some weeks when it's better to go for somebody else. Yeah, I don't know. Captaincy just feels a bit like a luck-based thing sometimes. I don't know. Yeah, so I got unlucky with that. Then, what's that? Got lucky for 11. Oh yeah, it was game week 8 game week 7 was the Queen's death, wasn't it? And then game week 8 there was a few teams that didn't play, but I actually got lucky and had a field in a whole 11. Only got a little bit above average, but I got lucky there. And then game week 9. Oh yeah, then game week. So let's have a look at this. Look, so that's my shape of my season. This is the amount of points I got minus the average game week points. So you can see here where I did well and where I did badly. And like first chunk of the season, I did really badly, apart from game week 5, and then game week 9, I started picking it up. Game week 5 was captain in Haaland when he got a 17-pointer. Game week 9 was captain in Haaland when he got his 23-pointer against Man United. And also in game week 9, I brought in Maddison. And if there's any transfer I made that I need to thank content creators for, that would be the one, because I'm not sure I would have thought of Maddison if content creators hadn't brought him to my attention, because Leicester were crap at this point. And I really wasn't thinking about them at all. They were doing really bad. And content creators, they were also bringing Bowen to everyone's attention. I didn't go for that one. I thought that was pretty crazy. And I think I was right about that. But I did go for Maddison. I thought they were right about the Maddison one. So I went with it. And he got an 18-pointer. So that was great. So thank you, content creators, for that one. But, yeah. And then we had, in this spell here, I started doing a little bit better. Game week 12 was the Arsenal-Man City blank. And I started kind of like butchering my team to try to navigate around it so that I could have 11 players in game week 12. And that turned out to be something I shouldn't have done. And again, this idea of like not planning too far ahead. I was trying to plan like all these 3, 4, 5, 6 game weeks ahead. And actually, if I had just stuck with De Bruyne and Jesus instead of switching them to Tony and Salah, I would have actually got about, I think I worked out it was like 13 points better off if I just stuck with them and then let them blank in game week 12 instead of getting rid of them. And I would have had 2 extra transfers as well on top of that. Which, I mean, it might have just been bad luck. It could have just been variance. I'm not sure whether my decision making was actually wrong there. But it just makes me think that maybe planning too far ahead is wrong, and you should just keep the players that you want for the next couple of game weeks, possibly. Something to think about. But I started picking up a little bit there. Then we had here, so then we had the Foden incident and the leaks and Haaland benching and the server crashes all around here, 13, 14, 15, which was interesting. So let's see. Yeah, so Foden leaks. Yeah, so I brought Foden in and then he didn't play. That was annoying. That was in 13, I think. And I think a lot of people did that. That was kind of bad luck because he was just smashing it in and then suddenly stops playing. That was a bit of bad luck. Then we had the leaks. And in game week 14, I got the leak. I switched Foden to Saka. There wasn't much in it in the end. Between 13 and 16, Foden got 12 points. Saka got 13 points. So didn't end up making much difference. But I did that. And then in 15, there was another leak for Haaland being out and the site crashed. And that one I did get locked out on. I didn't get my transfers through properly. Well, I did KDB to Salah. No, Salah to KDB, but I didn't captain him. Couldn't captain him. And that ended up costing me about 14, 15 points, I think. Something like that. So the leaks. I may as well talk about the leaks here. Because that was one incident that happened in the season, and it seems to me like the simplest solution and the most popular solution is just to bring the deadline to kickoff of the first kickoff, the first game, and I can't see a problem with it. I feel like that's surely the best solution, because if you bring it to the first kickoff, which is usually about 12:30 on a Saturday. The 3 o'clock kickoffs are now 2.5 hours away from that deadline rather than an hour and a half. So that will make it a little bit harder for leaks to come out. There's more games of that 3 o'clock kickoff, but we just saw at the game week 38, the last one that just came, we didn't get that many leaks. And that was the final day of the season. There was a lot of demand for leaks probably, and we didn't even get that many, even an hour and a half away. You had like some Man City, Man United, maybe a bit of Liverpool. At the end, we might have I had an Arsenal one, or I didn't feel confident about the Arsenal one. Newcastle, I don't know if we got, and not until after the deadline. Brighton, there was a vague rumour of Matoma being benched, but I wasn't sure about that either. And that was about it. I don't think we got that many leaks before the deadline, so I don't think we'll get that many. And then also the first kickoff, sometimes you have Friday kickoffs, so that will make the leaks even less likely for the next day. The only problem could be that I don't know whether FPL have a reason why they have to update it takes them like an hour to update the website. So maybe if the deadline was a kickoff, I mean other fantasy games don't seem to have that problem, but it's possible that FPL do. But even if they did, I don't know, would it be that bad a thing to just have the game not update for the first half of the first game? we still know who's going to score and who's getting assists and stuff. We can still follow it. I'm not sure it'd be that big a deal, and then it would just update after and for all the other games. Just feels to me like that would be the most ideal solution. Just make it kick off of the first fixture. But I would throw out there that in the World Cup fantasy game, I love the rolling lockout mechanism, where players just become locked when their games kick off. And if they did go for that, personally, I'd be very curious and interested and quite excited about that. I don't think it'd be a popular choice. I think most people would think it would complicate things too much. It's a family game and maybe too complicated, but I like that, and I'd be really interested in that. Add some extra strategy elements to transfers. Sometimes you can wait for the kickoff of your players who you want to transfer just to kind of check. And you can have like a spare transfer, and if as you're watching the games, if one of your players surprisingly isn't in the lineup, well, you could just transfer them out right then for somebody who is, if you want to, and things like this. It's like I like that mechanism, but probably won't happen. But first kickoff would be nice, but I think the chances of any changes are kind of slim anyway. 50-50 maybe, so we'll see, but we'll see what happens. So that would be a solution for that anyway. Then another little lesson I learned was game week 16. This was like my second worst game week of the season. And in game week 16, one of the lessons I think I learned was, generally in life, I'm generally not a conformist at all. If everybody goes one way, my instinct is to go the other. And if anything, in this game, I'm usually trying to fight against that bias, because sometimes the right choice is whoever's going to get the most points, no matter whether they got a high EO or low EO. You just get the person who's going to get the most points. And I'm always tempted to go for the low EO player, but it's like, no, I should just go for the player who's going to get the most points no matter what. But sometimes I do find that the draw of the herd does influence me a little bit with Twitter and content creators, especially this season, because it's the first time I've ever really been on Twitter and watching content creators. And I think they affected my decision. Maybe if any decision got affected, it was this one where I did Tony to Wilson, game week 16. Wilson had just got like 2 goals and 2 assists against Bournemouth, and his price was about to go up, and everybody was doing Tony to Wilson, and I kind of wanted Darwin, and I remember kind of secretly thinking I wanted Darwin, but then I ended up going Wilson because it seemed really obvious, and I look back now and think, did I just go with the herd? Of course, hindsight is 2020, because Wilson basically went on to get 2 points and Darwin got 20 points in the next 2 game weeks. Wilson played a 45-minute and then got subbed off because he had he was a bit queasy or something. He had the sniffles. And then the next game he only played like at 14 minutes or something, got a 1 pointer. And so that's another lesson, I think, is I need to watch out for that. Generally, I don't think I have a problem with it, but that the pull of the herd, when Twitter and FPL content creators are all moving in one direction, it does kind of, and especially when the price is changing and you've got to think fast, it does affect me a bit. So, I mean, one thing I could do is just make my decisions first before I go on FPL, on Twitter, or check content creators or anything like that. Make my decision first, or just kind of get my filters down a bit stronger, so I just don't care what other people do. Generally, I don't think I have a problem with it, but that was one decision where I look back and think, did I let that affect my decision making too much? And I think I possibly did. So that's another lesson I learned. Need to kind of just got to be aware of that herd mentality, the pull of it. It can be because it's, I think of myself as independent, but it still pulls at you sometimes. It's still there, and I've got to kind of unentwine it from me. Oh, hang on one sec. That's my door. Yeah, sorry about that. And so another word on trolls as well. I've decided that there's a couple of players who I think are trolls. Zaha is a troll. Wilson is a troll. Mitrovic is a troll, and Trossard is a troll. I did do a video on this actually, and there are some players that are quite troll-like. Wilson is the kind of player who can get a 20-pointer one week, but then be injured or benched the other. So he's like prime troll candidate, and he has trolled me a lot this season. Zaha is also a troll. Again, you have to watch my video. He's quite troll. Like Mitro is like all his penalty misses, and injuries, and he's gets suspended sometimes, and it's like that's the problem with Mitro. And then Trossard, I don't know. He has been quite trolling for me. We'll have to see if he's still trolling next season. I guess he's that kind of player who can get a haul, but he's also quite subbable, benchable. Sometimes he doesn't always play. So, yeah. Anyway, troll-like players. Anyway, that was halfway through the season. Then you had the World Cup. And then I had this patch here, which was like really bad, and I know why it was. It was because I didn't go for Shaw and Rashford. And again, this idea of striking while the iron's hot. I was thinking too far ahead, I think, and I was trying to think of these doubles. I think I was trying to be too smart for my own good. I was trying to think of all these double game weeks coming up, and at the time, it was thought that Brighton had the highest chance of a double game week because I guess they had more space in their fixture schedule. Whereas Man United weren't predicted any double game weeks at that point. So I didn't go for Rashford and Shaw. I thought I'll be clever, and I went for Trossard the troll. And I also went for Reece James and Cancelo in defence, which also backfired. And that cost me like loads because then it came out that actually Man United are probably more likely to get their double. Because they're still in Europe, so it means there's more pressure to get it done sooner rather than later. So Man United got their doubles in 20 and 22. And Shaw and Rashford just went off the scale and scored loads of points. And I had Trossard who got, not much. He kept getting benched. And then Cancelo and James didn't do much either. And I think that whole period cost me quite a lot of points, and I had to get an 8-point hit just to get Shaw and Rashford in because I was dealing with all these other injuries and stuff. So I think that little period there cost me like a good old 50-point swing maybe. So yeah, that was bad as well. But then I started clawing it back. From game week 20 onwards, started clawing it back. We had a lot of doubles started coming in then. Had like these were like Man United doubles, and then Arsenal Man City doubles and things like that. 25 was the blank double game week with the FA Cup or the Carling Cup, I think, and then Liverpool and Arsenal doubles. I don't know whether there's just a bunch of zombie teams out there, and the only reason I started doing better was because the zombie teams just don't react to the doubles, and because I was more engaged and I was reacting to the doubles, it became more noticeable. But I'd like to know how many zombie teams are out there. But the absolute worst game week I had was game week 26 when I wildcarded. And that is... I think that's just like... I'm putting it down to just pure bad luck, I think. I can't think what I did wrong there. I think I could play another 10 seasons and my worst week of the season will never be my wildcard week again. That's like although actually like a wildcard in game week 3, look, that was quite bad as well. Jeez, maybe it is, maybe there is a pattern there. But yeah, so wildcard 26, everybody went wildcard 26. I do think it was the right thing to do. I was gonna do I think it was the right thing to do. I think it was kind of obvious to do it. I was going to do wildcard 27 at least anyway, but then you get an extra transfer if you do it in 26. And my team I had for Wildcard, their predicted points in 26 was higher than my current team anyway. And it was just Salah against Man United getting a 22-pointer. I mean, that's hard to predict. And missing out on that, and that massive kind of like 7-0 whatever it was against Man United, that was basically it. I think it's hard to predict. I don't think I did anything wrong. And in fact, actually, I think it was kind of harsh because the people that did Wildcard 26 were generally the people that had done their research and they had done their work and they moved and they did strike when the iron was hot and they moved quick and they got it in there and then they got really harshly punished for it. That's how I feel. People that weren't ready and they wanted a little extra bit of week to wait, they got lucky by wildcarding in 27. So yeah, that's how I kind of feel like I don't think my decision maker was wrong. You could argue that I went with the Twitter herd a bit there because there was a massive Twitter herd movement to do wildcard in 26 rather than 27. But I think I agreed with it. I think it was right. So I went with it. I didn't think it was right to wait for 27. I was ready. I had the team. So anyway, I put that one down to just bad luck. Because then after that, the wildcard did do really well. The chip strategy did really well. Wildcard 26, bench boost 29 worked out well. Free hits 32 worked out well. All the surrounding game weeks worked out well. So that was all good after that. But then, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about was those. So that this end period got very templatey. And the chip strategy, because we had the FA Cup upsets, it made the chip strategy really obvious. That wildcard 26 or 27, bench boost 29, free hit 32 became so obvious. I mean, I know a few people still didn't do it, but for me, it was like really obvious. There was no other path really that made sense to me, and so because of that, and then also because it became very templatey because you're only choosing from a small pool of people. Brighton players particularly, they had the most doubles. They're really cheap, smashing it in, loads of goals. Everybody's going to get Brighton players, and then same with like Man United, Man City players, all the other people that had doubles. You end up choosing from a very small pool of people, and so you know, and this some people have complained that the whole game this season has been very templatey. And I've been thinking, so how would you make the game less templatey? And it seems to me like, you know, there's 700 odd players in the game, and the more attractive all 700 of those players become, the less templatey it will become. And it becomes more templatey when there's only like a tiny pool of players that everybody's choosing from. Then it's more templatey, right? So certainly if there's less double game weeks and we have a normal season, it would be less templatey. But I also wonder, I had this idea whether, and I haven't thought this through fully, but whether we could change the price changes in FPL to be a little bit more adaptable and malleable, faster changing, a little bit more dynamic. Maybe just if they just multiplied it by 2, not too much, but a little bit more. Like so for instance, Martinelli started the season at 6 million. At his height, he got to 6.9 million. And most people kind of think that he's probably going to be more like 8 million next season. And I wonder whether we could get it so that the price changes reflect true demand. So that if you just multiplied it by 2, so instead of him getting up to 6.9, maybe at his height he got up to 7.8 or something. It just, you know, it went up twice as fast. Same with Haaland, started at 11.5, ended at 12.4. But most of us are thinking he's probably going to be closer to 14 million, 13, 14 million next season. If you had just multiplied that by 2, then yeah, maybe he'd have got up to 13.5 million or something like that this season. I like the idea that the price of a player actually reflects true demand, and you know the changeability in the prices is adaptable to that, so it reflects true demand. I wonder if that would make the game more template, so that less templates, so that when a player gets too expensive, people will come off them. And also for the cheaper players who are going out of favour, if they start getting down to like 3 million, you get these bargain players of like 3 million, 2 million. Suddenly all these players that nobody thinks about might actually be worth it to bring in, and you've got this whole pool of players at the bottom that people might think about bringing in. I haven't thought it through entirely. It might not work. I don't think it would mean that people would just the people would move really quickly straight after a game week. Everybody would jump on the players that move because they don't want to be priced out. Because the same principle would still apply, that if you think it's better to wait, then those people who jump early, then they might get hurt. All the same principles would still apply. It would just be maybe higher stakes. And the idea that some people might be able to build their squad value instead of to 105 to 110 million, they might be able to get to 110 to 120 million. But if all the players are all moving up in the same proportional kind of amount, then that 110, 120 million shouldn't be able to buy you much more either. So proportionally, I don't know if it would be too bad an idea. And it would just mean that players move a little bit more adaptably, a little bit more malleably to their actual demand. Like the free market, like a price of bread or something, or price of anything, supply and demand kind of thing. It would just be interesting to see if it moved a bit more easily. It might make it less template. And then the only other idea I had was to try and make other players like defensive midfielders more attractive. I think other people have had this conversation. Maybe you can make tackles and things like this, get points for tackles or get points for other things that defensive midfielders do. Not sure. But the game only rewards goals, assists, clean sheets, and then bonus points. Bonus points does everything else. Might make the game a bit more interesting if there was points for other things like tackles and stuff. But just a thought. Doubt that will actually happen though. It should be less template-y anyway, just if you don't have as many doubles. But that was about it. And then the only final thing that kind of stung a little bit was game week 36 when I went Isaac instead of Wilson. Although I still did well in game week 36. But again, Wilson trolled me again. The only way I would have gone Wilson is if we had had a leak and he had started and Isaac hadn't started. So I don't think I would have ever gone without Wilson. And again, I don't really get it. Loads of very clever content creators were all saying Isaac. A lot of people that I respect a lot were saying Isaac because of his minutes and because you want him for the whole till the end of the season. And then Wilson smashed it. And it's just you get on the wrong side of these 50-50s sometimes. And it's is it skill? How much is it? It has to be skill because so many players get in the top 10k every season. But I can't help but feel like there is a lot of luck in it, isn't it? Sometimes. And that's another thing I noticed this season was the 50-50s, the 50-50 calls seem to sting the most. If there's a really obvious call, like I captain Haaland instead of Andreas or something, and then Andreas gets like a 20-pointer and Haaland gets a 2-pointer, I don't feel much regret because it was obvious you got to captain Haaland. That would have been a silly thing to have captain Andreas, It's just pure bad luck that he got a 20-pointer. But the 50-50s when they're close, like the Wilson thing, the Wilson Isaac thing doesn't actually sting that much because I was never really realistically going to go for Wilson anyway. Maybe I should have done, but I don't really know why. But yeah, there are some other 50-50s though when you're really close and they go totally wrongly, and it's quite harsh sometimes. So I don't know why they sting the most, but they probably shouldn't because it's 50-50. It's just you were close. Anyway, last things to say. Oh, yeah, there's one other lesson I wanted to say, which is that because like some people ask like, what's your biggest regret in the game? And I could easily look at some of these like these bad patches in the game where I lost points, but I don't regret the Wildcard 26, and I don't regret my decision here. Obviously, in hindsight, I do, but it's like at the time I did what I thought was the best thing with the information I had. So it's like I did what was best at the time. It was just bad luck. Chips didn't fall my way. The one thing that I do regret, I think, is there was a way of playing sometimes I had where sometimes I'd have solid data, but I would be hesitant to move on it. And then other times I would have not much data and I would be very punty. I'd have it. It's like the difference between true faith and blind faith. Sometimes I'd have these like blind faith punts where I didn't really have good reason to go for it. And I just kind of hit and hoped, just kind of like, yeah, let's just go for it for the hell of it. And they usually didn't work out. And I think I want to try and stamp that kind of mentality out of like taking punts when I shouldn't done. One of the things I did in Wildcard 26 was I went for Iheanacho over Kane. And this was because the template was so templatey. I hated it and I just wanted to do something different for the sake of it. Which is, again, this negative bias I have of like wanting to be a non-conformist just for the sake of it. And I shouldn't have done that. The data didn't really back that up to go for Iheanacho over Kane. It was punty. I didn't really feel it. I just went for it, hit and hope, and it didn't pay off. I should have just stuck with Kane. And I did that a couple of times, things like that. Whereas there was another time in Game Week 17 when we're doing the unlimited wildcard, and my model was telling me to go for Odegaard from the start, from 17, by quite a long way. And I should have just done it. I kind of felt it, but I was actually hesitant because I had Martinelli and didn't really feel confident to get rid of him just yet. And again, I should have struck when the iron was hot. I should have just went for Odegaard right there. I think. So yeah, more true faith. When the data is actually there, I should stick with that data and believe in it. And less of the decisions that are kind of hit and hope, that don't have the data to support it. I'm just kind of blind hoping. I'd like to try and make a distinction between those two, I think. But it's all very easy to say all this stuff in hindsight. It's all very easy to say it in hindsight. Because there's other things like Kane this season. I didn't have Kane for most of this season. Never had him. I had him a couple of times. Had him in the final game week. Had him in there, didn't I? In 20. Had him a couple of times, but don't think I had him for much. He was like, actually, I did have him for quite a lot. How much did I have him? Kane, what's he doing in my team? Maybe I did have him for a bit. I think I had him in game weeks. Hang on a minute. I'm about to lie. There he goes again. I had Kane for ages. I don't think, because in this on my data here it says like Kane is like my biggest loss. He was like my biggest killer over the season. Maybe I did have it. Maybe there was a chunk where I did have him for a bit then. When did I get him? 19. No, so I didn't have him in game week 19. So there was a little patch where I had him then. Anyway, I didn't have him for a lot of the season. The reason why I didn't have him was because I always felt like having Kane in my team made my team too rigid. The whole structure, the amount of money I had, it always made the team too rigid. And I preferred that flexibility and having all that flexibility and the little extra bit of money in the bank. I always preferred that. And the question is like, would I do anything different next season? And I don't know if I would. I still don't know if I would, because you'd have to do the maths. Like, not having Kane is like, okay, so I didn't have Kane, but I did have Salah and De Bruyne kind of alternating between those two, who are making me a load of points as well. And presumably the people who had Kane didn't have Salah and De Bruyne, or if they did, there's somebody else that they had to miss out on. There's some other 8 million players they had to miss out on. And the point is that everybody's got to miss out on somebody. You know, at the end of your season, there's always going to be some player who hurts you the most. You can't get all of the good players. So you're gonna have to miss out on somebody. So yeah, I'm not sure I'd do anything differently there. So I'm not sure what the lesson is there. I'd probably still go without Kane. Unless there is unless the right thing to do is to kind of make your team really push it to the limit and make it rigid and unflexible for the sake of pushing it to the max. Maybe, don't know. I need to stop talking. This video is going on too long. Yeah, watch out for biases was another lesson. Negative biases. I try to make a habit of writing all the good things that happen instead of the bad throughout after each game week sometimes, because you tend to just remember all the bad luck, all the bad things that happened. But I did get some good luck sometimes. I had Mitrovic from the start when he was doing well. I did get quite a few of Haaland's captaincy choices right against Man United and things like that. I had a few bits of good luck occasionally, so it's good to remember those. What else did I want to say? Yeah, I'll ignore that one. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. So yeah, it was a good season. I will probably play again next season. I won't play as engaged next season. I'm hoping my model will work, and I'll update my model, and I'll probably just play with that, and hopefully the lessons I've learned this season I can take on next season. We will see. Yeah, and I kind of wanted to just thank all. I can't go through everybody, but all of the content creators and Twitter and everybody I've interacted with. Lots of nice people on Twitter. And there's a lot of people to thank. I mean, Let's Talk Andy's the GOAT. And I mean, all of the leaks that he gave, I probably should be thanking him. It's probably a good 50 points I got from those leaks. That is like literally because of those leaks. So and Raptor and FPL Focal I think had some leaks. So yeah, all the content creators. My favourite content is Burning Questions with Sun and Praz. I always love that. I love the way they think, helicopter view, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, really like that was my favourite. But there's so many, like FPL Wire was great. The FML FPL guys is good. I love Planet FPL. There's loads, man. I like FPL Consult. He's good. And Golden Goal. I watched a lot. Yeah, there's too many to mention. I also wanted to thank the website FPL.team is a really good website. That was brilliant. That was like just I use that all the time. Very, very good website this. And Live Rank is really good. And FB Ref was brilliant. Use that all the time as well. Yeah, you can get your data, by the way, on livefpl.net/save. Download all your data. I'd encourage people to do that. I think I'm going to stop waffling. So that'll do. Okay, I'll leave it there. Bye-bye.